What is up, guys? This is the second video of the Champ Car stuff. In this video, Ryan Baker and I are at Baker's garage where he details his cars instead of at Clayton's today. So I hope you guys don't mind the change of scenery. I'm sure while we continue doing these videos, we'll be in between the places quite a bit. That being said, in this video, he's going to be doing like a season recap, kind of where we finished and what we hope to do next year. Also, we're going to go over all the modifications we've done to the car before all the video series stuff and what we plan on doing to it eventually. So I hope you guys enjoy. He's going to take over, and I'm sure there'll be some hilarious moments in here while we try and figure this out tonight.
Hey guys, Ryan Baker here. Welcome to Baker's Garage. So normally we are stationed at Team Oversteer's headquarters at Clayton Kendall's shop. He's on vacation. I had work to do to the car, so here we are. Welcome to Baker's Garage. I knew that if I had the car here at home, I'd be able to come out here and get some work done on it when I had some free time. So this is where I do all of my detailing. I have a detailing business. You can see, well, I'm sure you have seen on the side of the car, Baker's Garage, automotive detailing. That's my little business I do on the side. And I do all that right here in my shop. So anyway, here we are. Welcome to my shop. Today we're going to talk about our little recap of last season, and we'll talk about where we think we need to go, what direction we need to take the car for next season, and what our goals are, what we're going to do to make the car better, and what we expect and what our plans are. So let's get started. So to start off with, for last season, we did two races. We did one in Joliet, Illinois, which was our first race at Autobahn Country Club, and then we did our second race at Gingerman Raceway in Michigan. So our very first race, we built this car not knowing anything. We didn't know what we were doing. We had the rule book from Champ Car, and we studied it and read it, and we bought a V6 Camaro with a 5-speed, and we just dove in and built a race car. So actually, to start off with, we were originally going to do lemons. We bought a green Camaro for really cheap because we were trying to follow the rules and stay under the 500 bucks and all that. And the more we thought about it, we decided we wanted to do Champ Car because it was a little more serious, a little less silly. And so we thought we wanted to try to do that instead. Well, the more we got to looking at that car, we realized how big of a piece of junk it was. And so it's like, we need to find a better car. So we got online. We had already had an appointment set up at Phoenix Racing in Pennsylvania to have a roll cage put in this thing. And last minute, like 3 weeks before we had to have the car in Pennsylvania, we found a different car in St. Louis, and me and Clayton went and got it. And so that was this car, and we turned it into a race car. We gutted it out, we had the roll cage put in it, and then the rest of it was up to me and Clayton and Austin. And we've upgraded a lot of things on this car from stock for this previous season. To start off with, we went with a better radiator, oil coolers. We went with these 6th generation Camaro Brembo brakes, which are fantastic. We did do a spring and shock upgrade, and that was basically it. At that point, we basically said, okay, we've got a race car. We're just going to go racing. We're going to see how it goes. We had no idea what to expect. We didn't know how fast we would be. We did do a little bit of testing with 1010 Motorsports at Putnam Park before our first race. The car did really good, fun to drive. So we thought, let's do it, let's try it. So we get to our first race, and the car was really reliable, and it was really good to drive. All the drivers did a good job. And we ended up finishing mid-pack in our first race. We finished both days. There's two races. There's a race on Saturday and a race on Sunday. We finished mid-pack both days, and we were really proud of that accomplishment and thought we really accomplished something great. The downside is we're kind of slow. Our pace is not there. We need more power, I think, and among other things. But we're very reliable, and I think we've got a good group of drivers. And so everything went well. We were really excited about that. We got the car back. We decided to go with a different type of tire for the next race, and that's pretty much all we changed. We went to the next race in Gingerman. We were a little faster with the better tires, but still kind of the same. And we once again finished mid-pack. The race went a little rougher because we had a couple off-track expeditions, and we did have a brake issue, I think, in between the races, and we had to fix that. But still pretty minor, and we finished both days mid-pack, and really was a great first season. We just did the 2 races, and yeah, it went really great. So now we need to look forward to next year and see what are we going to do to the car to make it better. So to start off with, we have these really nice Brembo brakes. These are from a 6th generation Camaro SS. They're a 4-piston Brembo, and that's very important for Champ Car, because if you go with a bigger brake than that has more pistons, so a 6-piston generally is as big as it usually gets unless you're in something crazy. 6-piston calipers are higher, cost points. 4-piston calipers do not. And these are really big 4-piston calipers. So an example of a 6-piston caliper would be a Camaro SS1 LE or a ZL1 or the Shelby Mustang, or most of your modern Corvettes have 6-piston calipers. But this setup works really good for our car. It's got plenty of power. We got more braking power than we have tire anyway, so we don't need the bigger brakes, and they wear really good and they stay cool, and it's just a really good setup. So if you've got an F-Body and you're wanting to make a Champ Car out of it, this is my recommendation for brake setup. We really hit the nail on the head first time with this. The rotor we're using is from a C7 Corvette Z51 because the hub alignment works out right with the caliper location. We're running Corvette hubs as well with SKF X-Tracker race hubs so that we don't wear our bearings out. We've got 98 to 02 F-Body spindles because that allows for the braking location for the modern Camaro brakes. And then we basically replaced all of our control arms and bushings with just factory style regular bushings. Heim joints, which is the hard mounted kind that most track cars or race cars would have, those cost points and they add up really fast. So if you've got lots of Heim joints, you end up building up a lot of points. So we decided to try to compromise there and go with the stock style suspension for now, at least when it comes to the bushings. And it seems to hold up pretty well. We also have a really nice, the big heavy UMI sway bar, which helps, but we do not have a strut tower brace. With all the research that I've done over the winter last year, looking into technical reports and people that run track cars and stuff, they say that on these Camaros, the strut tower brace doesn't gain you much, but it does cost points with Champ Car's rulebook, so we decided to stay away from that. So for shocks and springs on this car, you actually are seeing the new setup now, which I'll get into later in the video. We started off with UMI spring and shock set, kind of a budget set, because originally we were trying to do lemons and we had to stay under a certain value. We were going to try to rust them up and make them look old so people wouldn't notice, and you know, the whole deal. Those worked pretty good for the first season, but they kind of got tore up and they're not ideal. So I did some research. We'll get into that later in the video when we talk about our upgrades. And that is the front suspension. All right, so now we're at the back of the car and we're going to talk about all the stuff we've done back here. To begin with, like I mentioned in the front, the springs and shocks I've already replaced. We did have the UMI kind of budget spring and shock setup. I actually have them here still. I haven't got rid of them yet. These got these just kind of basic budget Coney shocks, and these are UMI's 2-inch lowering springs. They sell it as a kit. They work pretty good, but for our needs, I think we need something a little better. So get these things out of here. So this is the rear axle of the car. We did replace the entire rear axle. This rear axle came out of a 2001 Camaro SS. So it's a 10-bolt, 8.5-inch ring gear. It's got clutch packs have been rebuilt and new bearings have been put in it. And then we're still running stock brakes in the rear. So you can see on this axle, this car has disc brakes. Our car originally, when we bought it, had drum brakes. So all the brake lines had to be redone. It was a whole different setup. So we bought new stock calipers. We run track pads and you know, braided brake lines and all that, and they work really well. They do wear pads worse than the front, but they do actually, we're actually a little bit biased to the rear a little bit too much, believe it or not, with these smaller brakes. So that may be because of the lightness in the rear of the car and just the way the car handles. But we may eventually move to a proportioning valve so we can adjust the brake bias. But for now it's okay. We can all drive the car fast and well. As far as the other stuff goes, you can see here we have these control arms. These control arms have hind joints in them, which is what we mentioned that we want to try to stay away from on the front because of points with Champ Car. But in the rear, with the live axle, we really have to do everything we can. So we have these control arms, the hind joints that connect the axle to the subframe of the car. And these basically keep the axle from moving this way any at all. We also have this pan hard bar relocation kit where we have a welds into the chassis of the car, lowers the geometry of this pan hard bar, and obviously the big tubular pan hard bar as well, which is more rigid. And you can see, if you look, there's also notches here on both ends, and you can adjust that. So you can lower it down and it makes the car more loose or more free in the corner. Raising it up makes the car more tight in the corner to where it wants to understeer more. We actually had it set lower originally. We tested it out before our first 2 races. It was a little bit too loose. It was really fun, which is actually how we kind of got the name Team Oversteer, because we were drifting the car everywhere. We ended up raising it up a little bit. We got the car a little more balanced, kind of neutral for everybody. And the car handles really good now. And this really helps a lot because we can adjust the way the car drives. On the other end, it also adjusts. You can center the axle, move it off center. You know, if you had a lot of left turns, you may want to move it off set a little bit. We just keep it centered. We're too dumb for that. So we also have this UMI Performance sway bar kit, and you can see we've had to space it down with some homemade spacers, just because of the way the rest of the axle is laid out and our brakes and everything. And that's pretty much it for the rear suspension. That's what we have so far, and we'll go into upgrades later. All right, so now we're going to talk about the engine bay and what we've had to do to this car to get it race ready. So, at least in our experience, the 2 most important things to making this car be reliable on the racetrack is keeping your oil cool and your water cool. To start off with, we did do a Mishimoto oil cooler. And Austin, if you can lean the camera in there, you can see right there where the oil filter is, there's what's called a sandwich plate. And we have sensors on either side of that sandwich plate for auxiliary gauges. So we've got a pressure gauge and a temperature gauge at the filter that we can monitor from inside of the car. And these tubes run in front of the radiator to a 16-row oil cooler that basically keeps our engine oil at a reasonable temperature. We also have a big DeWitt's aluminum radiator right here that we added. That helps keep our engine cool, keeps our coolant temperatures down. And as you can see here, you can see this foam. We foamed in the radiator to try to make sure we directed airflow through the radiator and not around it. It looks pretty cheesy, but it works pretty effectively. Those are the 2 major things we did to the car to make it reliable. We deleted the air conditioning system on this car, and so we had to basically measure our belt. As you can see, we actually had to grind a little bit of this fitting to make sure our belt didn't rub there, because our AC compressor used to sit here. We also had to build a battery hold down for Champ Car rules, so I had to have the factory mounting plus a steel clamp with terminal protection. We just had some random steel strap laid around, and Clay made this setup. And then we had some Kydex used for making holsters, and we used that to cover our positive terminal for terminal protection. You can also see this mess of wiring here that goes multiple different directions. Champ Car requires a kill switch that will cut off all power to the engine and ignition. You can see the lines running through the firewall. Those go into the cabin. There's a big kill switch in there where we can kill power to the car. And besides that, the engine's pretty much stock. I did have to put a intake manifold gasket on this car. I'm sure if you guys know anything about 3800s, they last forever and they run forever, but they always blow intake gaskets. And ours was leaking a little bit. We pulled the intake manifold off, cleaned it up, put new gaskets on it. We put new coils on it, new plugs, just gave it a full tune-up, made sure everything was good to go. And it just ran like a champ. We've done 2 full race weekends with it, plus multiple track day test tunes, and it's been really great at reliability. We do lack on power, so we'll get into that when we talk about upgrades. But that's pretty much it for under the engine bay. So now, as you can see on the dash, we've got Side Chick here. That's the name of our car, and we're in my favorite place, inside of her. So, interior of the car. So to start off with, obviously, disconnecting steering wheel. We've got our comms button here so we can talk to pit road. You actually hook to your helmet. There's a cord that comes out of your helmet from our comm system that's built into our helmet. When you get in the car, you plug into that, and then you can talk to your crew on pit road. We have on the dash here, we've made all these panels custom. We have our power switch that we mentioned before. This kills all power to the car. We have our 2 oil gauges, our auxiliary oil gauges that I mentioned that were on that sandwich plate. We've got oil pressure and oil temperature here. And actually you can see, I don't know if you can see or not from the camera, they're tilted sideways a little bit, which looks funny when you're in the car. But with this net that we normally have to run, when it mounts to the dash, to this thing here, it's right in the way. And so you can't see them when they're vertically straight up and down. So we canted them to the side so that when they're in normal operating range, you can see the needle and see where it's supposed to be. Down here we have auxiliary fan switch so we can turn on our cooling fans. And then we have our light switch, and this light switch is for the gauges, the 2 gauges. So if we run at night, obviously the dash gauges will come on if we turn our headlights on, but the lights is for these gauges so we can still see our oil temperature and oil pressure at night if we end up racing at night. Up here is our Flagtronic system. Champ Car made this a requirement last year, so we got to be part of the first season that raced with it. It's a really great system, and it lets you know the conditions on track. So if I'm out racing and green flag conditions, it'll be green. If somebody spins off or there's some kind of hazard on track, you'll get a yellow flag, or maybe a yellow and red flag if it's like debris or something like that. And then if we have to go down to what I would call a virtual safety car, this will go to what's called code 35, and it flashes purple, says 35 on it, and you have to go 35 miles an hour. If you go too fast, it'll flash at you and tell you to slow down, and if you go too fast too long, they'll penalize you for it. We also have up here, we got a big concave mirror so we can see completely behind us when we're racing, so we know if somebody's coming up on us or not. We have over here, I've got my transmission shifter here, 5-speed transmission. We have our Lifeline fire bottle system. So this is the control module. We can test it, and we can arm it from here. There's a bottle back here that has a large amount of basically fire extinguisher fluid in it, and there's nozzles under the dash, under the hood. If there's a fire, this button right here with the big E, you push that and it dumps the fire extinguishers, and then you can get out of the car without catching on fire or whatever. This module controls that, so right now it's turned off, so if I accidentally hit the button it won't go off, but you can arm it, you can test it. This box here is for our cool suit. So obviously it gets really hot in the car. It's a race car. There's no air conditioning anymore. We talked about removing that. There's also no ductwork at all. We've taken all of that out. So there's not even any cooling fans or anything running in here. So the air gets pretty stagnant. So this cool suit system, there's a cooler in the back of the car that we fill full of ice water. It has pumps in it, and it pumps it through tubing that comes up here next to our driver's seat. And our shirt that we wear has tubing that runs in the shirt across our core area, which is where we need to stay cool the most. You plug into that when you get into the car, and you can adjust this knob, and you can control how much cooling you get. And that really works amazing. We also have a duct up here that we'll be able to see from the outside of the car that we homemade to get some air in the car. So we basically bought like a $15 Amazon stick-on hood scoop and mounted it to the roof of the car, drilled a big hole in the roof, and we used some of that Kydex that we used for the battery hold down, and we made like a vent here that directs air down towards the driver so we get some fresh air as well. We also have up here on the steering column, you'll see this kind of homemade plate we also made with Kydex. The steering column, one of the rules Champ Car, they require you to remove the locking mechanism. So normally when your regular street car, you turn it off, the wheel locks and it won't turn anymore. It's like an anti-theft thing. They don't want that on the car because if they got to push the car off or they got to tow the car, and the steering wheel locks because it's dead or the ignition won't turn on or whatever, that becomes a problem. So me, not knowing that it was going to be a problem, I just cut the top of the steering column out and ripped that module out so that it wouldn't lock anymore, because it was easier than taking the whole thing apart. Well, then once we put our radio on, when we'd turn the wheel, the radio would wrap around it and get stuck. So we had to make this new cover plate for it. That normally doesn't happen. Besides that, we have this nice seat here that's a Racetech race seat. It's on a slider, so I'm the shortest driver. Clay, Garen, and Eric. Eric's about the same height as me, I guess. And Austin are all taller than me, so they can come in here when they get in the car. They can adjust the seat. That is okay per Champ Car rules. We also have 6-point harness, and our driver's net over here. You probably can't see. There's a net that goes up on our window and it connects right here. You can see the roll cage in the car a little bit probably. This was built by Phoenix Performance in Pennsylvania. Really a top-notch outfit, a really high-quality job. Feel really safe in the car. We do have to upgrade that this winter because there is a small imperfection that they wanted us to change. Not really an imperfection, I guess, but it's a dimension issue where they want some things moved. We'll get into that later. But that's pretty much it for the interior of the car. This is the nicest part of the car for sure. It's a really professional job with the roll cage, and I think we did a really good job putting together the rest of it, and we're really proud of the way this car looks on the inside. I know it doesn't matter that much, but it makes you feel good, and makes cool phone wallpapers too. That's actually the wallpaper on my phone, is the inside of this car. So yeah, that's it for the inside.
Action.
Alright, so you can see our sweet dually exhaust here, and if you look real close, see what that says? MagnaFlow, baby. You remember back in the day when Mario Andretti did those MagnaFlow commercials and he had that yellow, like, very early C6 Corvette base one that had MagnaFlow exhaust on it? He talked about how you didn't want your car to be overly loud, you just want it to sound good. What a bitch. Anyway, here's the back of the car. We got our exhaust. So we do have a MagnaFlow exhaust system that came with our green car that we stole because it looks cool. The rest of the exhaust is stock. So just we did lose the catalytic converter. Champ Car requires you to not have a catalytic converter. So we removed that. The rest of it's just stock. We just welded in a test pipe basically. You can see our dangly toe flap here. That's for if we were to go off track, get stuck, they need to have something to hook to us and pull us out. So for now, we can basically walk around the car, look at the stickers. This is one of the required Champ Car stickers. It has our car number, represent 847, and our class, which is Class C. Up here we have Garen, who's one of our drivers, his business, Greene County Chiropractic. For all your back pain needs, go see Garen in Worthington. On the side of the car here, your very own crew chief, i.e. me, Baker's Garage Automotive Detailing. Kendall Quality Services. Clay Kendall is the owner of the car. His two businesses, City Pest Control, which is a family business that's been going for years, and then his new business that he does, land management and stuff for utility companies, Kendall Quality Services, is on the car. Up here on the front of the fender is the fellow behind the camera, Austin Gordon Photography. He's got the front fender here. And then on the side of the car, these are more of the required Champ Car stickers. So we've got our number plate here, 847, represent. And then these sponsors that are required by Champ Car. We do have a Lifeline fire system, which is good. And we don't run hawk pads, but it's on the car anyway, because it has to be. C-Class banner down there, it says which class we're in. There's A, B, C, D, and F classes in Champ Car now. We run C, which is for engine sizes between 3 and 4 liters basically, which is why we run a 3.8 liter V6 Camaro. More fire systems buttons on the outside. They're all labeled with the big E. Push the button, so if a crew worker comes, I'm stuck in the car, whatever, they can push the button on the outside of the car. We have the tire rack sticker on the windshield, which is required by Champ Car, and you can see our sweet lick 'em stick 'em hood scoop up there, which brings some cool air for the driver. Yeah, that was pretty cool. We have an antenna back there for our radio comm system. We talked about hooking up to the radio. There's a radio that goes in there's a holder back there for the radio. It goes up to the antenna so we can talk to each other. On the front of the car, our team logo, Team Oversteer. Another tow strap for the front of the car in case we gotta get pulled out. And then another number badge for the front corner of the car, 847. On the other side of the car over here, there's another button here for the fire system. And then there's our tags. Shout out to 10/10 Motorsports, best track day people around. If you're in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, and you want to do a track day, these are the ones you want to run with, because in the advanced group, no point buys. You can run side by side, pass each other, and most places don't let you do that. So that's really cool. But a great bunch of guys, and yeah, good environment to go learn how to drive. Actually, one of our drivers, Eric Gamble, he's actually an instructor for them. So if you go there new, if you go there as a new novice driver, and you drive a Corvette or something, they'll probably pair you with Eric, and he'll ride along with you and teach you how to drive. He was my instructor when I first went and did my first track days. I think he was your first instructor. No, he wasn't, but he was Clay's first instructor, and Garen's too, I believe. So great guy, great driver, and a good teacher. So besides that, that's the outside of the car. All right, so now we'll talk about our plans for next year and how we're going to upgrade the car to make it better. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're a mid-pack finishing order, but we're really on the lower end on our speed. We're just really reliable, so we never stop, which is good. But if we can increase our speed and stay reliable, I think we can really truly be mid-pack on pace. And if we can get mid-pack pace-wise, I think we can sneak in a podium here and there. And I think that'd be a really good goal for next season, is to try to get a top 3 in our class at a race. So to start off with, I've mentioned the tires before. We did change tires for our second race, and we're going to stick with these tires because they did really well. These are Hankook RS4s. There's a lot of teams that run these tires because they really wear really good. Our car is bigger and heavier, so these tires have some tread life left, but they're pretty well shot because they overheated on the edges and chunked out. But they still lasted us through a race weekend, which is good. You can see we're running some reproduction C6 Corvette wheels. They have the right offset and everything that we needed to clear our brakes. So that's what we're running. We got 2 sets of wheels, and we got another new set of tires ready to go as well. One of the things we're going to change this year, besides the suspension, is these subframe connectors. So it's a pretty common modification that most people do on V8 cars because it makes the car more rigid and more stiff, and you don't get as much body twist. This will basically connect the rear. There is where the rear axle control arm mounts to on the frame, and then this ties into the middle of the chassis, and this ties into the front of the chassis, the front jacking point. So it basically ties the 2 halves of the cars together. Those are welded in. We'll weld those in whenever we get it back over to Clay's shop. He has a big welder there. We also have this really nice Detroit Speed steering rack. We're going to be upgrading that. That will give us a different steering ratio, a shorter ratio, I guess, or a tighter ratio, which will allow us basically to be less input in the wheel for corrections and for turn-in. It also will be stronger and more robust, less slop and all that. So we're going to upgrade that as well. And also, like I mentioned before, the springs. So the springs we're going to are Strano springs, which if you look into the F-Body community at all, everybody says that if you're not going with full coilovers, that's the spring you want. You want Strano springs. So we got a set of those with some really nice high-end Coney shocks to go with them. That's what everybody online recommends for those cars. So we're going to run that, see how that works. Hopefully it'll make the car a little more stiff and rigid in the corners. We won't have as much roll and as much suspension dive, and it may help with our rear braking as well because we may not dive as hard, may not be lifting the back end up so hard and braking when it won't lock up as bad. So we'll see how that goes. We don't know yet. So as far as the suspension goes and the chassis, that's all we're doing. The car handles pretty well. In the corners, we really hang with about everybody for the most part. Our main problem is in the straightaway with power. So we do have our spare engine. We've got a buddy that goes to the track days with us that builds engines and is a mechanic. And his name's Keith. We've taken him our spare engine along with the camshaft and some valve train components, springs and stuff like that to support the high lift of the cam. And we're going to do a bigger cam. He's going to rebuild the bottom end. And we're going to just kind of clean up the heads a little bit. And we're going to see if we can get some more horsepower out of the engine. I think if we can get more power out of the engine, I would like to see 300 horsepower at the crank. We don't know. We'll see. May not be that high. But if we can get some more power out of the engine and stay reliable and not use too much fuel, I think we can hang in there with some people. So be truly mid-pack on pace. I don't know if this car is capable of doing much better than that without tons of money. We'll see. But we are going to Daytona for the first race of the year. Should be first weekend of April. The schedule isn't out yet. But our plan is to go all in. We're going to Daytona. And we're going to need that horsepower because there's a lot of time spent on the banking wide open. And we'll need that horsepower to try to keep up with everybody. So we'll definitely get a true test of it when we get there. We'll see how it goes. That's a 14-hour race. It's not 2 days. So we'll have to probably do a brake change at some point in that race. We'll probably just have to strategize, and if there's a caution or something like that, try to make the call on the fly and have stuff ready to go to do a brake change. Our rear brakes won't last the whole race. Besides that, I think it'll be pretty straightforward. You just trade drivers and you keep running and just try to turn laps. And if we can do these upgrades to this car, get some speed in the car and be able to keep up with at least most of the people, I think we have a shot to do pretty well. I think it'll be a pretty tough competition at Daytona. It'll be a full field, but we're going to try our best and we're going to have a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to next year. That's about it. Plans for the car. If we get the car done soon enough, we may try to paint it because race cars are red, regular red, not burgundy. So we'll see if we get a chance to get it painted before the spring, but that's last priority. We want to have the car ready to race before that. So that's pretty much it for the video, I think. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us on this journey with our little racing career. It's kind of a dream come true for us. It's something we've always wanted to do, and you know, we're never going to be professional race car drivers, but man, it sure is fun, and it's one of the best times I've ever had with my friends, and hopefully we're going to do it for years and years and years. So hopefully this car will continue to get better, and we'll get better, and maybe we'll bring some trophies home. We'll see. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. We yanked these out. They're gone. So the rest of the car, this rear axle is from a 2001 Camaro.
Why is it so funny?
I don't know. Start over.
I thought you were going to make it all the way through that.
I know. And now I look over at you and you're losing your shit. All right. Take 5.